Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Leftovers, Season 1, Episode 5. It's called Gladys. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, I didn't know what Spectacle's name was before, and it was briefly mentioned in this episode, and I thought I'd caught it. I'm like, was that Gladys? Was it Gladys? I think it was Gladys. And then I looked at the name to do this afterwards, and I went, oh, it's Gladys.
Definitely.
Definitely confirmed that for me, so that's nice. So this is an episode that is bookended with really gut wrenching stuff. Well, gut wrenching at the start, sort of more emotional at the end. But it's definitely one that's sort of big start, big end, and then a lot of slower burn in the middle.
Yeah.
Which isn't a complaint. It's just that's kind of how
there's
this
really good stuff in the middle still.
Oh yeah, there's some really great scenes that I want to talk about. But the opening. We talked about what the whole breaking into people's houses and stealing their photographs might lead to, and I do think that it's kind of odd how it's almost not addressed in a larger sense. Like obviously what we're seeing is the effect of it, but no one, like hardly anyone, mentions it or speaks about it, which I thought was
because
interesting.
I think it's been a while.
Has it been a while?
This show keeps doing jumps, and they mentioned that they'd taken Matt's church months ago.
Yeah, well, I knew that jump happened because there was 6 weeks. Because if you remember, Tom in the last episode said it had been 6 weeks since they'd left Wayne. So I knew there was a
Right.
6 week jump from
Yeah,
2 to 4.
but it feels like there's been a bit of a jump again
Yeah, that's probably true.
because it doesn't feel like Christmas anymore.
Nah, just cold. Which, but it's weird as a viewer because I was expecting like Fallout and like, I was expecting Kevin to get the phone call, be like, oh, you never guess what the GR did last night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
we skip right over that.
we skip right over that into like sort of later on, and we open with Gladys, although she'll still be Specs in my heart. We open with her and her buddy like doing their rounds, and they do this thing where they really make you question how much you sort of sympathise with her, because we see like, this old man fall over with his food and his groceries, and they don't help him; they just walk around him. It's so uncaring.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it really puts you in this weird place where you're kind of like, you're kind of a bitch. Like it kind
pretty
of
much. Yeah,
it puts you in that place. Like even if that's not her, even if that's what the GR mantra is, and she's adopted it. Like I mean, it still makes her a bitch, but even if it's like higher ups that are sort of instilling down that, like
she's willingly following it.
exactly. But no, she gets she gets kidnapped outside of a gas station, sort of middle of the night. She's waiting on her friend, using the bathroom. She gets pulled into the woods, and they tape her around a tree. And I actually thought that was going to be it. I thought they were just going to leave her there, because my thought process was, well, she's not allowed to speak. How is she going to like yell for help?
Shout for help. Yeah.
Yeah, like just putting her somewhere like where she can't get out. That's almost like just a prison sentence, possibly a death sentence, depending on how long it maybe takes for them to notice. But no, it quickly gets violent. Stones start flying at her face, and it is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it really is.
It is
It pulls no
uncomfortable.
punch. You see all of it. Like, it pulls no punches in showing you how visceral it is.
Because the first one misses, and it hits the tree.
Hmm.
And you think, oh, that's just giving me a sense of what's about to happen, and it's going to cut away. And we're just going to hear the pain
Yeah.
as we look at some trees or something.
No chance.
No, this was... actually, quite just from a technical point of view, it's quite impressive how authentic this looks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Because obviously, obviously the rocks will have been soft or whatever. Like they'll have had trick rocks, but
Yeah, but they bounce off her like they were real.
yeah, and obviously the sound effects add a lot to it as well to make it feel real, because it feels like they're really thumping her face.
Yeah, obviously all the blood.
Yeah, to the point where she eventually starts speaking. She starts begging for them to stop. Please, don't. And I almost thought that was the end of it. It's like, oh, they've made her break her vow, so
Yeah.
we're going to leave now. But they just keep, there's one more hit, and then we go to the titles. We come back, and obviously our buddy's like, right, she's missing. She goes and gets the rest of them. They go out looking, and they find her on the tree, and she's dead. She's just sort of hanging there with the tape holding her up, and it was funny because. So like I say, I think it really plays with your sympathy towards her, because it kind of goes out of its way right before it happens to make you dislike her.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, because I think as she has been beaten to death, you're not really happy she's being violently brutalized, but at first you're kind of like, whatever. Like she's getting hurt. It's like after the photograph stunt, I don't agree that should be happening, but I accept that you kind of were poking the bear, as it were.
Yeah, you understand why people have retaliated. That's kind of what a lot of the rest of the episode is. Kevin kind of speaking to them, going, "Look, I don't want this to happen, but you've got to understand why this is happening.
Yeah,
you're provoking people into this."
Yeah. And I think what it does really well is because it keeps going and she keeps getting hurt, and to the point when she eventually starts pleading, it's like it doesn't matter how much of an asshole she is. By the time she starts begging, you're like, no, this is just downright inhumane. Stop this right now. Like it's almost like it makes you dislike her first to make a point that it doesn't matter how much you dislike someone. This is brutality and this is awful and evil. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if they're a villain. It doesn't matter what they did. There's a point where this is just violence sake for violence sake, and hate only breeds hate, and other obvious statements to make about the whole subject. But so I think it's very smart in that sense, because it makes you kind of dislike her, and then it makes you feel sorry for her anyway, because it's just there's a threshold.
That's it. I think that's why that moment where they ignore the man with the groceries is there, because when it was stealing the photos, that's awful as it was, but we didn't see a personal involvement from her. We didn't really get a sense of her doing it. We got the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, she was in the scene, but yeah, she was.
Yeah, but we didn't really. There was no focus on her. Whereas here, it's like, no, this was her active choice not to do something versus her being part of a large group.
Yeah, so really brutal scene, and obviously, we'll skip over the character stuff. So I just want to talk about how it ends with her as well, because the episode ends with her getting into a furnace. Because there's some mess ups throughout the episode where one of the cops calls like the is it the FBI?
No, it wasn't. It was like alcohol, drugs, and something else. It had a really long
but it was cults. The last thing that on their list was cults. That's what they dealt with, and it was this idea that once she was in the system, she got carted off, and they basically just put her in a furnace. It's like she doesn't get a proper funeral or anything like that. No one cares. It's like a factory. It's like it's like the reverse of like something demanufactured, where that's the end of the life cycle, and you just go into this soulless factory where there's just tons of bodies, and you're just put in a furnace. No one cares. Bye bye. And you see that throughout the episode. You see that random guy who has the dogs, who wakes up Kevin when he's staking out the place, and he's like, don't investigate too hard. It's like. So, on the one hand, you could say, is that maybe implying that maybe he was involved in the mob? Because we have no idea who these people were. It was just people in masks.
It could be, but I don't necessarily think that.
I think it's 50-50, and I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I think it equally could be, because we have no... I don't think we're ever going to find out. I don't think we're ever going to find out who these people were. I think it could be him, or he could just be on the sort of the line where, you know what, I'm not bad. I'm not sad that happened to her. Don't worry about it. So I think it works both ways, and I think that's what makes it work so well, is because he could be, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, either way, it's still he's kind of awful.
Yeah, the point is being made. Like, even if he's not one of the most extreme of the extremes, the fact that someone has these thoughts implies that there are people who are out there that are more extreme, and we've seen them. That's why they feel empowered, because there is, to an extent, a backing for them through these sort of less radical but radical sympathizers, as it were. So, no, really interesting stuff. And what I like about this episode, from a character point of view, especially both Kevin and Laurie to an extent, actually, although kind of on opposite ends of the coin. Kevin's whole episode here, like, he's frustrated because he can't get the alarm to work. He's lost his shirts, all of his white shirts that have got his badge on the shoulder. Yeah,
we have another kind of thing where he's questioning his sanity for the episode, kind of.
Kinda, yeah. And although I read this more as a more direct thing in this episode, because ultimately the entire episode is about him accepting that he's getting divorced. That's what the episode's about. All of his frustration, he's not been able to remember the code, his not remembering where the shirts are, all that stuff, it all kind of pales up because he's not just come out right and accepted it and said it. Which is why I think the scene at the end when he says to Jill, your mother and I are getting a divorce, he just admits it. It's a really powerful scene. Music's really good, of course, but Jill's reaction's really good, because for once it felt like they had kind of a genuine moment, because so often she's the bratty teenager who's like, I don't care about your dad. Screw you, old man.
She is, for a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, but for a moment she's like, no, I love you too, Dad. And it's almost like she can't accept having a sweet moment, so she leaves the room. But it's enough. It's enough to make him feel better.
Yeah.
Because he got here. Because she even says it's not your fault. Because he says because he apologizes for it, and she knows it's not him. It's not his bad. In fact, I think her scene in the school is really interesting because obviously, the attack on Gladys becomes public knowledge, or it's becoming public knowledge, and he goes to the school, and he's just going to tell her that it's not her mother because she's going to hear rumors that someone from the GR has been stoned to death. He doesn't want her thinking that, but as soon as he comes in the room, she expects the worst. She thinks this is the coming to school to tell you that your mother's dead.
To be fair, that is exactly what it looks like.
It does. And I was actually surprised when that's why he was there, because I thought he was maybe there for someone else, and she just jumped to conclusions.
Yeah, and honestly, he probably should have thought of that before he walked in there.
He probably should have, but as this episode shows, he was not thinking in the right mind throughout most of this episode.
No, that's true.
What I really liked about that scene, though, is when he takes her outside the class, and she's crying because she thinks what's happened, and she's really upset, and then he gets really sort of comforting and emotional and says, no, it's not your mother, she's fine as far as I know.
Yeah, he suddenly realizes what she's thinking.
Yeah, she doesn't even say it, he just gets it. But he calms her down, and there's this great moment that I love with Jill where she realizes how emotional she got, and it's like the mask comes back on, where she goes, and I think she says something like, oh, I shouldn't have cried, that was stupid. But even before she says the line, there's a facial change where it just changes her expression, and you just get that, oh no, mask is back on, I'm back to being...
It's like she remembers that she's supposed to feel like her mother's abandoned her, and that she's not supposed to care anymore. Clearly she does care, as we've seen with this and the present, but the front that she puts on.
I think even beyond that, it's just the general front, because even now when Amy's like talking to Kevin in the other scene, and he's like, is she okay? And she's like, well, she's Jill. It's like, what does that mean? Well, she doesn't really do okay. Like, that's kind of her thing. It's her shtick, that she's always kind of this moody girl, and it's like she had to go back into character almost because she'd let herself get weak for a second and kind of express herself. But it's kind of almost like a joke on, because people always joke that's what teenagers are always like, that teenagers don't like to express themselves, so they always go, don't care about anything.
I mean, it's mostly true.
It is to an extent, but like TV and movies tend to ramp it up a little bit.
They do.
But no, so I really like that scene for that reason. Speaking of Aimee, actually, I love when he gets up and it's when he first notices the shirts aren't there, and he gets the one out of the washing basket, and he sort of sniffs it, and he goes out and he tries to talk to Jill about, getting a ride, breakfast, he's seen my shirts, blah 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 blah, and Aimee just walks out in her underwear. It's like, hey, Mr. Garvey, will I make coffee?
Do you know what? It dawned on me when like we see her over here all the time, but here I'm like, she's clearly living here. Mm-hmm. I'm like, did she lose her parents in the departure?
She might have,
because it's never been mentioned, but I feel like there's got to be a reason why she's living here, and that's the most logical one.
I think the first couple of times it never really occurred to me, because when you're teenagers,
it just seemed like she was there after school, sort of thing.
Yeah, or even when you're teenagers, sometimes you do spend the weekend at a friend's house. Like, that's kind of normal. It happens all the time. But yeah, we're at the point now where it's episode 5. Apparently, like half a year's passed at this point since October, because we started in October, and it's at least a month after Christmas at this point.
Yeah.
So it's been a few months, and yeah, so it's like,
and like she comes out of a room on what is clearly a school night.
Yeah.
And it feels like she's living there at this point.
It does.
So I'm assuming she's lost her parents, which is kind of sad that she's there being the responsible adult of the household, and she's the one that's lost someone, whereas these two, they didn't lose anyone directly from it.
I get speculation. We don't know for sure.
Okay. But we've never been told that they've lost anyone.
I mean, her parents should just be shitty, and she just doesn't want to go home. For all we know.
I mean, they could. I'm just I'm making assumptions, because in this show, I think that's fair at this point.
No, I think it's fair. I don't think it's worth overanalyzing it yet. But yeah, that's definitely a possibility that she's lost her parents in this, or at least one of them, and maybe the other ones, like maybe her father abandoned her years ago, but then her mother disappeared.
Yeah, it feels like whoever she was living with.
Yeah. But no, I love his reaction when he sees her like just standing there half naked. He's like, "Are you serious?" He didn't say anything, obviously. He just
takes a moment.
Just the facial expressions is he's like, "I'm a grown ass man. You're like 17 years old. Go put on some clothes." The way she talks to him though is great. I love how she just kind of assumes the role of the wife in the house.
She does, yeah.
It's glorious. There's something really funny about it. The way she just does it, and Kevin just constantly is like, just, what's happening? Like, what? How did this happen? When did I marry a 17-year-old?
He's just she every so often she just says something or walks out like this, and he'll just stop and go, "What is going on in this house?"
I have no control over my life, which is kind of the point of the whole episode, is that he feels like he has no control, and he hates that he has no control, so he wrestles to take it back. He tries to wrestle control back of the body from this organisation. He tries to wrestle back his shirts from the dry cleaners, which was an interesting scene in and of itself, when he's kind of drunk and he goes to the dry cleaners, and he forces his way in and he demands to get his shirts. I'm like, are they really his shirts? Or is this guy just scared enough that he's just handing him white shirts? Because I'm thinking, because his white shirt has like the police emblem on it, stitched in on the shoulder. So it'd have to be his shirts. Not that it really matters.
I think they are, because there was 8 shirts and he got them straight up.
It was just the way the dry cleaner guy kind of like, oh yeah, here's like 3 white shirts. Spin the thing. Here's some more. There you go, 8 shirts. Thank you. Our mistake.
Yeah, it's possible. He was very threatening at the time.
It was. It was almost like he was being held up. It was like a guy with a gun coming in to a store. That's how it felt.
I love that he tries to pay him afterwards.
He does. Well, because the scene right before that, he's buying some booze, and the kid's like, "Oh, I'm not allowed to sell booze to someone who's already drunk." Or inebriated is the exact word he uses.
Oh no, he doesn't use inebriated because he gets corrected.
He gets it wrong.
It's like inebriated or something.
And then Kevin, despite the fact that he is clearly a bit tipsy, then says it right, inebriated. He's like, "Yeah, I'm the chief of police. You're fine. I'm not gonna give you a trouble.
You ain't getting any trouble.
Nah, just give me my booze, and there'll be no trouble here." So no, but it shows that weird sense of morality where he's making demands, but he kind of tries to, because he has some genuinely sweet moments, like the fact that after the first day of like investigating this crime of Gladys being stoned, and he talks to Matt and questions him and talks to other people and all this stuff, and he tries to be at a curfew, and that scene goes horribly wrong because Baldy, do we even know his name yet?
I think they did, because he said it in this where because he was a witness of the crime.
Aye. Which, by the way, any speculation that he's not real.
Which, I think it's really interesting, this one, where they present the idea that maybe he is going a bit crazy again, like the shirts, the number, where he keeps leaving voicemails to the other agent, and the agent's like, I only got one message. There's all these things, but then in this one, they're like, no, he's definitely real.
I'm just bringing it up, though, because in the scene in the previous episode where I said, no, they just showed that he was real, and you disputed with me and said, no, he still might not be.
I was just saying there was a possibility. But...
Well, shove that possibility up your ass. I was right. Continue.
All right. I think it was the pest control guy says, hey, I think it was Carl.
Carl.
I want to say Carl.
Oh, I've got a class list in front of me. Maybe. Where's his
I could be wrong.
That's not him. God damn it. He's so elusive. Dog shooter man. That's who he is. Where is he? Where is it?
Because he definitely says it like in that scene, because he's like, oh yeah, I clear out the dogs for them.
Yeah, you're right. He does. Man, his face is not jumping out to me on IMDb. We'll leave it for now, but I'll make a point of looking it up before the next episode. So yeah, that goes horribly wrong. Where was it? I was leading to a point when I was describing everything. It's really sweet because after that first night, he goes and he stakes out the GR's base because he's worried about Laurie. He doesn't want anything to happen to her. He's tried to help. He's tried to give them all whistles. He's like, hey, use these, and I've got people out in patrol. They'll hear you. They'll come and help. He's trying his best. And I also thought it was interesting how kind of slightly hypocritical the GR kind of are, in the sense, so we see at the start, Gladys and her friend ignore the man who's fallen over, right? They clearly do not want to help the world or people in it. But as soon as this happens to Gladys, Patti comes running to Kevin. She shows up at his door.
She knows that as much as he's pulled shit on them, he's still not going to let them get hurt. He's tried to get them arrested and get them off the streets, but he's not actually going to let them get killed.
Yeah, but they want help. It's hypocritical.
Yeah, it is.
It's actually like the more I kind of understand them as characters, the more I like their entire sort of cult religion is like kind of hypocritical and cruel, and just doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense. It seems very selfish. They claim to have a purpose right now, but right now I'm like, no, you're a bunch of hypocrites. You don't want to help anyone, but the minute one of you gets hurt, you come crawling back to our world, as it were, for help.
Yeah, I see. I wasn't reading it quite like that because I think it's a very genuine moment for her. Because, Kevin's expecting them to be confrontational still, and he's like, "Look, I need you off the streets. I can't
And yeah,
protect. I haven't got the manpower." She starts writing. He's like, "I know what you're gonna say," and she just comes around with, "Of course."
yeah,
And I think it's not that it's hypocritical. I think more they just realize the weight of it. I think this is the first time something like this has really happened,
mm
and I think it's her realizing that this is this is serious now, and they can't just do
You
anything.
may be right, but like when she showed up at that door, that was my first. That was genuinely my first thought. Was like you come crawling for help when you seem to not want to help anyone else. You want to
Yeah,
shun everyone else, but you're come crawling the second that you need it, kind of thing. It felt very. I don't know, just kind of
yeah,
like Uh, but yeah, so we had that. We had Kevin had a lot of good scenes in this actually. One moment I definitely don't want to gloss over is when he runs into Nora at the dry cleaners the first time he's there when he's trying to see if they've got his shirts.
mm,
The reason why I like this scene is because kind of much like the scene they met in the last episode is they meet for a second. She happens to be in line as he's leaving, and she's like, "Oh, I don't believe them. They're trying to sell the shirts in the black market." She's just cracking a joke, right? And
yeah,
he sort of like loosens up for a second. It's actually in a scene where he's constantly on edge the entire time and he's constantly feeling like he's buried under all this weight. That one scene when he meets her is when it feels like he's free and he can just
yeah,
enjoy the moment. And again, it's maybe an indication that they are lost souls that are finding each other, and that'll develop into something more. But it was very clear to me in this episode that the rest of the time he is stressed, he is burdened, he is like practically losing his mind over certain things. He's constantly under all this pressure, and then for that one moment he meets her, and it all goes away, and he can just kind of be happy for like
yeah,
a split second just to say hello.
yeah, yeah.
So,
It's like you say, it's the idea that as soon as she's there, it's the one time he's actually himself,
hmm.
and like for the rest of that scene, he's not. He's just buckling under the stresses.
Yeah, and of course Liv Tyler's Meg isn't helping by when he goes to see them and she's not and Laurie's not there. Meg's like, she's not your wife anymore.
It harkens back to they're not our dogs anymore, and I love that because that was this whole big, the dogs was society, and he was losing grasp of society as a whole. And it was this big metaphysical idea that was hard for him to get around, but now it's you're losing your wife. It's personal, so now it's homing in on it for him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I also think it adds into the scene when he speaks to Matt, and Matt obviously for a second I don't think Matt's guilty of what's happened. He's just sort of, and I don't
Of
think he
course.
does really either.
No, it's just he has to question. It's his
Yeah,
job.
he has to go through the motions. Yeah, and he's like, okay, you were with your study group and give me their names, blah blah blah. And when Matt's like talking about how he wants to see her and pray for her because she won't get any sort of funeral and she has no family. Uh, I think it's when they're in the car driving to see the body later. Actually, when the conversation that I really want to talk about. This is when he finds out the body's not there, that it's been shipped off to this other place. He's talking about how there's no reason. He tells this story from the Bible, but ultimately it sums up to there's no reason to actually kill the GR because they're already dead. And what he actually wants to do is to bring them back to life. He wants to bring them back to the living because really, as far as the way they've cut themselves off from everyone else, the way they've given up everything, they're basically dead to society
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. And that's kind of what he wants to do. So the idea when he says that and like Kevin's reaction, it's like he's remembering everything else. Like she's not your wife anymore. It's kind of like your wife died and you're a widower now.
yeah. You just haven't actually done the mourning,
Yeah,
which is why he's in such a strange place because he's lost her, but he hasn't. He hasn't done the grieving part.
I think because unlike an actual death, because this is like it is a death in spirit, but it's not really. You think there's a chance you'll still get her back, and I feel like the end of this episode when he just openly says to Jill, "We're getting a divorce."
Yeah,
That's him accepting it, and that's him starting the path of maybe becoming himself again. And it'll be interesting to see how he changes the character as a result of this. Like, will his anger go away a little bit? Will he soften up, as the show goes on, kind of thing? How will his and Jill's relationship develop as a result of this? Will Aimee still try to sleep with them? Like all these questions that
that's the big one, isn't it?
she's going to have to fight Nora. Nora and Aimee are going to. It's going to be a love triangle between Kevin, Nora, and this teenage girl, Who, to be fair, he is reacting appropriately in every circumstance.
He is, yeah.
It's just
She is determined.
do you know the fact is, it's not like she's even actually making any moves. It's just constant.
I think it's just. I don't think it's that she's actually trying to do anything. I think it's just this idea that she is so comfortable living there, and she is part of the family. She has become the mother or the wife, and she doesn't. She's not even thinking about what she's doing. She's just walking out because she's like, why wouldn't I just walk out?
Yeah. So no, I thought Kevin's journey in this episode was really fascinating. It had several great scenes, both scenes with Jill, scene with Nora, all of it was good. Liked all of it. So let's flip over to Laurie, because it was essentially a two side episode. I mean, Jill was in a couple of his scenes, but it was really just Kevin plot and Laurie plot. And Laurie was basically the shock of seeing Gladys beaten to death like that. She has a panic attack, and she ends up going to the doctors, and Patti decides to take her somewhere. It's kind of like a day off, an R&R at like a motel somewhere. Go to a restaurant, and it's like, oh, you're allowed to speak today, because she comes out in regular clothes, and she's like, right, those clothes were for you, and sit down, and like, what do you want? And she looks at the waitress like, oh, like, stunned, because she's not spoken 8 months, as she points out. And Patty's like, oh, you're allowed to speak today. But she never does. And she points out that Gladys, when she brought her out here like this once last year, because she found out her son had died in a helicopter crash. And she was the same. She told her she could speak, but she never did the whole day. And it was...
And I think that was a really powerful moment, because we finally saw her, like, that didn't break her. Like, when her son had died, she still didn't speak. But we saw it when it was her life at the end. She begged.
Yeah. It kind of retroactively makes that even a little bit more darker, just in and of itself. And I think an obvious wrong meaning to take from this scene would be from Patty's point of view that it's a test to see if she will speak. I don't think it is. I don't think like had Laurie started speaking when she was told she could, it would have been like, oh no, you failed.
No, I think Patty's being very genuine. I think to some extent she is worried about her, and especially after she's just lost one of her members.
There's some shocking parallels here to Aunt Lydia.
There is.
It's actually kind of weird. Just,
as I'm saying it, I see what you say.
A couple of parallels to Aunt Lydia and Handmaid's Tale. But
I do think she is very genuine. I think she is worried about her, and she wants them all to follow the rules and do the stuff. But I don't think she wants them to put themselves entirely at risk, because obviously this event has shaken her. Mm-hmm. So I think she is genuinely going, look, let's make sure you're okay and you can carry on like doing the mission.
Well, that was an intrusion. Also, Connor's Twitter was wrong, so that's also miraculously changed on that cut. But yeah, I think it's interesting how it's kind of the same story as Kevin from the opposite side, where it's about her finally and truly letting go. Where it's like the whole time you're like, oh, is she kind of like thinking back to her life? And Patti even says, I know it's hard, and I know you remember your family, and I know these things. It's almost like, I'm actually more human than you realised. Like, yes, I am your cult leader, right? I shouldn't say that, obviously, but that's essentially... But I am more human. I understand that I remember my family too, but that's what makes us doing what we do so hard, but it's important. And that's ultimately when we get to the scene later on, when Matt shows up with his Bible group, and they get the mic out, and they're trying to give like a sort of funeral, essentially, for Gladys in the street with all them.
And it's a really good moment for him, because this idea that they took his church, they took him, like they hurt him personally, probably more so than most of the people they took the photos from, because it was a big thing for him. And even past that, he's still there going, no, I'm going to come out and I'm going to do this. It's the right thing to do.
Do you know what I think is really interesting about that, though? I think it's what Patti just said. It's hard. Like, they've made this really hard thing for him to do, but he's still going to do it because he's devout. Just like they're devout to their cause. It's
like he says, isn't it? He doesn't understand their faith, but he respects the idea of it.
Well, no, the exact line is, I don't understand your faith, but I do understand commitment, and I can respect commitment. I think that's interesting. So obviously Laurie storms out. My only complaint about this scene is did she know about the bucket of whistles? Because she wasn't there when Kevin brought them in.
I imagine she's been told since she got back.
Yeah, I suppose,
again,
yeah, okay.
Patti cares. I think they will have told her because she's the leader.
I'll be interested to see if in the next episode they're all wearing whistles.
Yeah, I think I can see that maybe she's gone, "Do you know what? We will wear these," because I think it did show that she does to some extent respect Kevin, and like she knows that he's being genuine when he's doing this. He just doesn't want them hurt.
Yeah, yeah, and more than that, because there's one Kevin scene we kind of glossed over that I do want to talk about solutions to their cult problem. Uh, but like, yeah, so she comes storming out and she walks out, and I love how Matt gives his, the cheesy Christopher Eccleston smile that appears across his face, thinking, oh, one of them's caved. They're coming to preach with us, and she just walks up right into his face and starts whistling to get him to shut up.
Yeah, it's a rough moment for him.
It's a rough moment for him, and then for her, it's like, no, this is like proper. She is proclaiming that, no, she is committed to her faith, her commitment, and Patty, of course, smiles at the sight of it. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, let's talk about that scene actually. The guy on the acronym that we can't remember on the phone, the one who said, "Oh, I didn't get your previous message." He's like, "Yeah, it'll take like 46 weeks. We'll have an officer out to like investigate things." He's like, or we could just do this sort of like set thing we do. And what I think's interesting about this is because he basically offers to send in like a SWAT team to like their base and take care of them. And I'm like, is that what we saw with the other cult with Wayne's compound?
I think it was, yeah.
Back in like episode 2 or 3. So I think that's interesting.
I also, to go back to, I think it was last episode with Tara mentioned how it feels like there's a cult in every city. I think that is it here, because he's going, which one is it? And he's like, Gira, and he's like, although, what's the deal with the smoking?
Although I don't think it's I don't think the GR are only in this city though. It sounds like to me there's maybe like 6 or 7 or something like that are all over the country.
They're spread across the country. Yeah. But there's like branches and chapters all over.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the GR are bigger. They are not just in this town, but there's like, one town might have the shoeless bullseye cult, and one town will have this, but then another town will have another one, but then there'll be another town that has the GR, and so on.
There's like a handful of the big ones that they all like. Okay, we know there's these.
But just, I guess it's kind of like if you look at the Earth as a whole, it's kind of like religion. Like, there's Christianity, there's a little bit more Christianity there, but there's
Do you know
Buddhism.
I think would be really interesting. You know how like Christianity is the one spirituality, there's all the subsects of it, like Catholicism, Protestants, all or whatever.
Well, so you think there's a GR that all wear black?
Yeah, maybe our GR is slightly different to the GR of a different city. Like there's just some little differences, but like enough that they're like, no, we are completely different from their perspective. But to an outside view, you kind of group them all in.
I think that's. I mean, obviously, we can't really talk about that until we actually see one of these other.
I know. I hope we do now. I'm excited to see that.
But no, he basically just offers like, they won't be your problem anymore. And do you know what I really liked about this? Because obviously this whole thing's on the phone. We never see the person at the end of the phone call. We just hear it. We're always in Kevin's scene.
Yeah.
Do you know what I liked about this? Is as the conversation, because at first it was just a normal voice. The guy just had like a sort of normal voice, just a sort of official dude talking about the options and what's going to happen. Oh, sorry, it's already in the system. Blah 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 blah. As it got to this point where it got a little bit more sinister, where he's basically offering to just murder them all, which obviously Kevin's not going to want to do, for a multitude of reasons. One, of course, being that his wife is in there.
And secondly, that he's actually a good person.
Yeah, that he's not just willing to kill them all, because that's not how he thinks. But as it got to that segment, the voice got more and more sinister sounding, and it this is a really weird thing to compare this to, but it really reminded me of Scream.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying.
It's like, it didn't go full on like, what's your favourite scary movie? It didn't go full on that, but it felt almost like it was inching towards that kind of sound.
It did, yeah. It was just getting a bit deeper and a little bit more gravelly.
Yeah, because it's like, and they won't be your problem anymore. Like, it was a very intentional thing, and it felt a lot like a scene from Scream when the killer's on the phone. I thought it was interesting, but it is kind of interesting. Maybe it shows the state of the world that these black ops teams are just willing to go in and murder like a group of people because they're just because they might be a problem because they're a cult. They might have their views might become an issue, and we can just wipe them out without any type of prosecution, anything like that. Just complete murder.
It says a lot that presumably they have authority to do this from the government as well. So it shows you what a problem some of these cults must have been for them to have been granted that power.
Yeah, well, I think on the news during this episode, you hear about a cult in Florida that are actually attacking things. They're doing terrorist acts.
Well, yeah, and that's it. When Kevin calls them, he's like, it's just those. You've got it kind of easy.
Yeah. Because you hear vaguely in the news, you see like some like I think there's some like firefighters out putting out a fire or something, and then he mentions it on the phone. Oh yeah, I've been down in Florida dealing with this. Like, so you just get this sense that this little bit of mythology building that there's all these other things going on, and some of it is a lot more severe than this time.
Yeah, the gay remnant are tame by comparison to some of the others across the country, it seems.
Yeah, so that's interesting stuff. So that was a really good episode. I do want to actually quickly talk about something from last episode that we forgot to discuss.
Go on.
Look at you try to think. Oh, what was
I'm trying
it?
to think. Well, because the last episode was a weird discussion, so.
But it's because we recorded most of it was a technical fault. We had to go back and do it again. And now we forgot to talk about the final Tom scene with Christine, who was not in this episode at all, by the way, which is interesting. Jill probably wouldn't have been either had it not been for the fact that she has scenes with Kevin.
Yeah, she ties into Kevin.
Yeah, because it was Kevin's story. But no, the scene where they find that the truck's tipped over and it's all the fake bodies that people are burying, like in place of their loved ones from the departure. And Christine's like, oh, it's just like my dream, but it's all these bodies out in like their white wrapping, and they're not real. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. The people, there's a service that people are paying for where they'll recreate a fake that looks like their loved one, so they can bury
And
it.
what did she say about a dream? It was like all the people in white, because obviously you think of the GR as soon as she says that.
Yeah, but then again, the part of the country they're in, maybe the GR are nowhere around.
Maybe they're not, but maybe all things come back to this family and the events at home, so to speak.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if Tom eventually does come home.
I feel like he must do at some point, because it
I'm
feels
sure,
like it's so separate that his plot's just off on its own. Like that's why when you have an episode like this, it's really hard to put him in it, because he doesn't connect anywhere.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting though, since we're having so much time jumping between episodes, like the next time we see him, it may have been like 4 months since like the last scene we had with him, and Christine might have like a big baby bump.
I would expect that, yeah.
So, yeah. I wanted to bring that one up because I thought that was a really interesting idea, and really cool visual as well. But no, music was again fantastic this episode. That whole ending with her slowly getting into the. If I'm going to critique it, if I'm going to put on my critic hat here for a second, I'm like, why did they put her so far away in the conveyor belt? Why didn't they not just start her off closer? It's purely for dramatic effect, so we can have the slow, long ride to the furnace. But there's no actual reason to put her like 30 feet on the opposite end.
Maybe it's a safety thing. We've got to stay this far away.
There was a guy next to the furnace door with a button.
That's true. Yeah, dramatic effect.
Yeah, I mean, I get why it's that long, because maybe you've got like 10 bodies, you're putting them all in at the same time. That's why you'd have the big long conveyor. But it's like, why put her on that end? Just start her closer.
Maybe they're just lazy. They're like, I can't be bothered to lift her all the way down there. Here'll do.
I'm pretty sure they walked in at the same end where the furnace is and walked to the opposite end.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, that undermines that then.
Like I say, I really like the scene. If I'm putting on my nitpick hat, why did they put her at that end? Really good ending though, and it shows just how much no one cares for her. Like, there's no one to mourn her.
Yeah, there's barely anyone to even watch this.
Yeah, because they're not paid. They're half out the door for lunch probably. Like, these workers, they're like,
Yeah, they're just pressing the button and leaving it to go.
Yeah, it's an all day. Which, to be fair, it's quite not. Even people who work like in crematoriums and stuff, like for them it is just a job and they have to kind of detach themselves from it. So there's nothing wrong with them, particularly because if this is their job,
it's not their fault that no one cares, and it's not their responsibility to care about her either.
But certainly the fact that we're seeing this big, essentially factory full of dead bodies that are to be disposed of, it does make it feel really inhumane.
Yeah.
So. Another solid episode. So again, I do think a couple of metaphors here or there are a little bit on the nose, but I do think the character beats are starting to get better and better.
I'm really enjoying it now.
Yeah, the character journey. I think this is the most. I mean, Kevin obviously had that great scene last episode where he got the divorce papers, but I think when it all came together at the end, when that moment came at the end, when he finally, because it was almost like I didn't really know what the episode was about until he came out and said it, and I'm like, oh, that's what this whole thing's been about.
Yeah. Which is why that line's there.
Well, exactly, because I think because there has been time jumps, like we don't know if he's already said it to her, like between episodes, but then he finally says it, and it's like that's what this is about. This is why he's so rough right now. Is because he's not accepted that he's getting a divorce.
And that's it. I think that's why we have the time jumps as well, because this is the end of that journey. Like assuming we've skipped forward even a few weeks or a month.
Yeah.
It's built up. It wasn't this sudden thing. As soon as she said, I want a divorce, and he's snapped. it's built to this.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go. That's episode 5 of Leftovers. We'll be back once again midweek, Thursday-ish, for another episode. So let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. Individual Twitters are on the screen, the right ones, we checked. And go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to see some of the bonuses and support the channel. Of course, one of them is that you get these a week early, the already cancelled reviews of Leftovers. Also Star Trek. You get those a week early for just $1. But there's other bonuses as well and stuff you can check out. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Keep watching TV, guys. We'll see you next time.